is Brian with ScreeningFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2020's The Unholy, directed by Spiliodopolous. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. Starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And speaking of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the man is so charismatic. He has such a presence about him. Yet even that is not enough to save this movie. And that's not even to say that it's bad. It's kind of there. In fact, if I were to draw an analogy between The Unholy and something you're probably more familiar with, it would be non-alcoholic beer, for instance. Which, to be totally honest, I've never tried, because what's the point of drinking non-alcoholic beer? It just eludes me. And The Unholy is like that of movies. It's not bad. As I said, it stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, William Sadler, great actors, and it's based upon a book by James Herbert, no relation to Frank, I assume. Though, the problem with The Unholy is that, first off, it's too familiar. In the sense that if you've seen 2003's Darkness Falls, the antagonists in both movies, visually speaking, are remarkably similar. I assume it's just coincidence, because who would actively try to do that? But they're remarkably similar. And like that movie, it doesn't quite gel as a horror movie. As I said, it's not terrible. It's not unwatchable. Though to have paid the price for a movie ticket is unconscionable. I rented it for like $1 and change. And it was worth it. Anything more than that, I think you're being screwed. Though in any case, I haven't read any of the books by James Herbert, though it cannot be as simplistic as this. The movie revolves around Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, who is a disgraced reporter. You don't know what he's done exactly, but you get a feel for it as the movie progresses. And he's discredited, and he's working for some National Enquirer-esque / TMZ type service, and he's supposed to go upstate to take photos of a cow that supposedly has been preyed upon by devil worshippers. The truth is actually kind of amusing, though he comes upon this doll. And how he comes upon the doll is where the irritation with this movie starts. It's within a hollow tree, but to make him go to it, there's a computer-generated flash of light, as if something were glinting on the ground, which catches his eye. This really bothered me because it wasn't necessary. As opposed to putting that computer-generated flash there, and it was obviously computer-generated, you could have just easily put, I don't know, a piece of glass and direct light at the glass and get a real flash of light. It's a little thing, but keep in mind, everything is made of little things, and lots of little things combine into massive things. One grain of sand is one grain of sand. You get trillions of them, you get a beach. So it really bothered me to see that. As I mentioned earlier, Jeffrey Dean Morgan has charisma to spare, and it helped to buoy things. Though, I mentioned the doll. In an effort to make up a story, he destroys it, unleashing the spirit of this entity. Now, this thing, this spirit we meet actually at the beginning of the movie, sort of. And it casts the entity as a sympathetic one. But as the movie progresses, we come to learn that this person, while alive, was in league with the devil, and that's why they were killed. Mild spoiler there. So what they're trying to do is to get believers, to get followers, so that it can, I should say, condemn their souls to hell. It's not a bad idea, and I get the feeling that it pulls plot threads from Herbert's novel. Though, what I would hope the novel isn't is as simplistic as this. The movie is about false faith, and religious fervor and things like that, which I should mention Midnight Mass did much better. Though, with The Unholy, it's just kind of silly, and the monster is CGI for the most part. I assume motion capture. But its movements are so weird and jerky that virtually every time I saw it doing things, I was asking myself, why is it moving like that? What is the point of it? It moves almost at times like a spider. It's very tall, it's very gangly, and it moves in a very inhuman fashion. But this is a problem that goes throughout the entire movie. There's no reason why it should move like that. It feels like weirdness for the sake of weirdness, and I guess for a younger viewer that might be interesting, but for me, it was just kind of irritating. There was no reason for it to do the things it did. And I mentioned earlier that this could not be a good adaptation of the book. I also said that I haven't read any of James Herbert's books, though I would hate to think that this is a good adaptation. I really do, because this is not a good movie. But it is watchable. It's not trash. It's entertaining. It's well done for what it is. And if you have a lazy Saturday or Sunday and you wanted to watch something, you could spend your time in a worse fashion than watching The Unholy. But that's my point. Keep the expectations low. If you go into this movie expecting some story about false deities and faith, you're going to be really disappointed. This was directed by Evan Spiliodopolous, as well as written by him based on James Herbert's book. And it is just not good. I'm almost contradicting myself, because again, it is watchable. Yet at the same time, it's not very good. I should mention that the first name of the entity before it died was Mary. Its first encounter with a person is this deaf-mute girl, and it gives her the ability to speak and hear, as long as she does so praising its name and getting followers. What I find particularly clever about the movie is that the entity uses miracles to sway people to follow it. And since they think they're talking about the Virgin Mary, it works. And as I said, it's a clever little thing to have happen. It works really well. When the gig is up, the entity takes back all the gifts it gave. For instance, anyone that it healed suddenly couldn't walk if it gave them the ability to walk again. Couldn't see if it gave them the ability to see again. And so on. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if The Unholy comes on cable, give it a watch. It's not terrible. It's well acted. Their hole is big enough to fit a Death Star through in its story, but it's at least watchable. So there's that. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.